Every desire that has ever entered your heart carries with it a silent invitation. It is not inviting you to chase it, force it, or search endlessly for proof that it will happen. It is inviting you to become the version of yourself who already possesses it. Yet this is where most people lose their way. The moment they accept a desire, they immediately begin looking outside themselves for confirmation. They search for signs. They count coincidences. They analyze every conversation, every number, every unexpected event, hoping the world will whisper it's coming. But what if that very search is the reason it seems delayed? Consider this carefully. If someone handed you the keys to your dream home today, would you spend the next several weeks asking strangers whether the house truly belonged to you? Would you wake up every morning wondering if it was still yours? Of course not. Ownership removes the need for constant reassurance. The person who possesses something does not look for evidence of possession, because possession itself is the evidence. This is the state you are being called to enter. The greatest misunderstanding about manifestation is the belief that signs create faith. In truth, faith creates the experience that later appears as signs. The outer world has never been leading you. It has always been following you. Every event you experience is simply echoing the state you consistently occupy within yourself. If your inner state is one of certainty, life reflects certainty. If your inner state is one of waiting, life reflects waiting. If your inner state is one of searching, life continues giving you reasons to search. Many people unknowingly remain in the identity of someone who hopes instead of someone who already has. They say they believe, but every few hours they ask, is it working? They imagine their desire for a few minutes and then spend the rest of the day wondering when it will arrive. They look for angel numbers, repeating patterns, unexpected messages, or unusual coincidences to reassure themselves that something is happening. But understand this: the one who already possesses the desire has no need to seek reassurance. Imagine planting a seed in rich soil. Every morning you return to the garden, not to water it, but to dig it up and inspect where the roots have formed. Each inspection interrupts the process. The seed requires trust more than curiosity. It requires consistency more than excitement. Growth happens beneath the surface long before it appears above the ground. Your desire unfolds in much the same way. The invisible always precedes the visible. Every building first exists as an unseen blueprint. Every masterpiece begins as an unseen idea. Every invention lives in imagination before it becomes reality. Why should your own life operate by a different law? If everything visible begins in the unseen, then your responsibility is not to force appearances, but to remain loyal to the unseen reality you have already accepted. The mind conditioned by the senses finds this difficult because it has been taught to believe only what it can observe. It says, "Show me first, then I will believe." Yet the deeper law quietly replies, "Believe first, and then you will see." There comes a moment in every transformation when nothing outside appears different. Your circumstances remain the same. Conversations sound the same. Your bank account may appear unchanged. Your relationships may seem identical. During this period, the old way of thinking whispers that nothing is happening. But is that really true? Does the absence of visible evidence mean creation has stopped, or does it simply mean the process remains invisible for a time? Think about the sunrise. Long before the first light reaches your eyes, the earth has already begun turning toward the morning. The transformation begins before it becomes visible. Likewise, your new reality begins forming long before your senses can recognize it. The person who understands this remains calm. They no longer panic because today's circumstances resemble yesterday's. They understand that today's circumstances are reflections of yesterday's assumptions. Instead of reacting to them, they quietly return to the assumption they have chosen. Again and again, they occupy the feeling of fulfillment until it becomes familiar. This persistence is what changes everything, not dramatic effort, not emotional intensity, not endless affirmations spoken from desperation. Still, unwavering persistence. Suppose someone desires financial freedom. Every day they imagine abundance, yet every hour they check their balance to see if something has changed. What does this repeated action reveal? It reveals that they still identify as someone waiting for money. Their attention remains fixed on lack rather than fulfillment. Now imagine another individual with the same desire. They still pay their bills responsibly. They still manage their finances wisely. But inwardly, they have accepted a different identity. They no longer define themselves by temporary numbers. They carry themselves as someone whose life is already overflowing with opportunity and provision. Their peace is no longer dependent upon what today's balance happens to display. Which of these two people has truly changed? The second one has shifted the cause. Everything else must eventually follow. Life faithfully mirrors identity. It does not respond to wishes nearly as much as it responds to assumptions. What you repeatedly assume yourself to be eventually becomes the experience you cannot avoid. This is why checking for signs often delays the very thing you seek. Every search silently declares, I do not yet have it. Every anxious question strengthens the identity of waiting. Every desperate observation feeds the belief that fulfillment exists somewhere outside the present moment. And consciousness simply reflects that belief. There is remarkable freedom in releasing the need for confirmation. The moment you stop demanding proof, you create space for trust. The moment you stop chasing evidence, you begin living from possession. Notice how peaceful people become once something is unquestionably theirs. They are not constantly wondering whether tomorrow will take it away. They simply enjoy it. That quiet confidence is far more creative than emotional excitement. Excitement rises and falls. Confidence remains. The world often celebrates dramatic emotions, yet the deepest transformations usually occur in quiet certainty. Imagine waking tomorrow with complete conviction that your desire has already been accepted in the invisible. How would you think? How would you respond to delays? Would every inconvenience shake your confidence? Probably not. You would understand that temporary appearances possess no authority over what has already been established within. This understanding changes your relationship with time itself. Waiting disappears because inwardly you no longer believe fulfillment belongs to tomorrow. You begin experiencing its emotional reality today. Gratitude becomes natural. Peace becomes effortless. Patience no longer feels like endurance because you are not waiting for life to begin. You are already living it. Many people unknowingly postpone happiness until manifestation arrives. They say, once this happens, then I'll feel secure. Once I receive that opportunity, then I'll relax. Once the relationship appears, then I'll feel loved. But this way of thinking places your emotional life under the control of circumstances. The deeper law invites you to reverse the order. Become secure first, feel loved first, live in gratitude first, not because appearances demand it, but because consciousness creates appearances. Your inner world is not supposed to imitate your outer world. Your outer world is meant to imitate your inner world. Every moment presents you with two voices. One voice belongs to appearances. It speaks through temporary facts, visible conditions, and past experiences. The other voice belongs to imagination. It quietly reminds you of who you have chosen to become. Only one of these voices deserves your loyalty. If you continually follow appearances, you remain trapped inside yesterday's creation. If you remain faithful to imagination, tomorrow begins taking shape according to a completely different pattern. The choice repeats itself countless times each day. Every disappointment asks whether you will react or remain faithful. Every delay asks whether you will return to waiting or return to knowing. Every unanswered question invites you either to search for more signs or to rest in the certainty that what has already been accepted within cannot fail to express itself without. The greatest act of faith is not believing after evidence appears. The greatest act of faith is no longer needing evidence at all. The moment you no longer require proof from the outside world, something remarkable begins to happen within you. Your attention, which was once scattered across countless circumstances, returns to its true source. You stop asking life for permission to believe in your dream. Instead, you give yourself permission to live as though it is already unfolding. This quiet shift is invisible to others, yet it changes everything. You begin noticing that your thoughts become calmer. The urgency fades. The desperation disappears. You no longer feel the need to convince yourself every few minutes that your desire is coming because in your heart it has already arrived. You are not pretending. You are choosing to identify with a reality greater than the one your senses currently report. Understand this deeply. The person who keeps checking for signs is unconsciously saying, I trust the world more than I trust my own consciousness. Every time you seek another confirmation, you are placing your faith in effects instead of causes. But the true creative power has never existed in the effect. It has always existed in the cause. And the cause is the state you consistently occupy within yourself. Look back over your own life. There have likely been moments when you expected something negative to happen, and without realizing it, you prepared yourself emotionally for disappointment. Perhaps you worried about an important conversation, convinced yourself it would go badly, and then watched that expectation unfold almost exactly as imagined. It seemed as though life had confirmed year, but in reality, life was simply reflecting the state you had already accepted. Now imagine directing that same power consciously instead of unconsciously. Imagine expecting success with the same certainty that you once expected failure. Imagine assuming peace with the same consistency that you once rehearsed anxiety. Imagine identifying with abundance as naturally as you once identified with limitation. The creative process has not changed. Only the direction of your attention has changed. This is why there is no need to become obsessed with methods. People often ask which affirmation is the most powerful, which visualization technique works fastest, or how many minutes they should meditate each day. These questions are understandable, but they often miss the deeper point. No technique possesses creative power by itself. A technique is only valuable if it helps you enter the feeling that your desire is already fulfilled. Once you have entered that state, remain there. Do not leave it just because the world has not yet rearranged itself. A person who has truly accepted a new identity does not abandon it because one difficult day appears. Imagine someone who has finally realized their worth after years of self-doubt. If another person criticizes them, they may feel the sting of those words for a moment, but they no longer allow that criticism to define who they are. Why? Because their identity has changed. The opinion of the world has lost its authority. Your relationship with your desire must become the same. Do not allow temporary appearances to decide what you believe about your future. The world is always moving. Circumstances rise and fall. Opportunities appear and disappear. Seasons change. Nothing visible remains exactly the same. Why then should you believe that your present condition is permanent? It cannot be. It is only a snapshot of the assumptions you previously entertained. The beautiful truth is that every moment gives you the freedom to choose again. You are never trapped by yesterday, unless you continue agreeing with yesterday. Every new assumption is the beginning of a different future. Perhaps you have spent years believing that happiness belongs to other people. Perhaps you accepted the idea that success is difficult, love is unreliable, or abundance is reserved for a fortunate few. These beliefs may have felt real because you experienced them repeatedly. But repetition does not create truth. It only creates familiarity. You can become familiar with something greater. You can become familiar with confidence. You can become familiar with peace. You can become familiar with abundance. You can become familiar with the feeling that life is always working in your favor. At first, these assumptions may seem unusual because they differ from your old identity. But every identity was once unfamiliar. The person you are today was created through repeated thoughts accepted over time. The person you become tomorrow will be created in exactly the same way. Be patient with yourself during this transition. There may be moments when old fears attempt to return. There may be mornings when doubt quietly whispers that nothing is changing. Do not fight these thoughts. Simply refuse to build your home inside them. Let them pass like clouds across the sky while you remain rooted in the deeper knowing you have chosen. Remember that the sky is never harmed by passing clouds. Likewise, your true creative nature is never diminished by temporary doubt. Return again to your chosen state, not with strain, not with frustration, simply with gentle confidence. Again and again, every return strengthens the new assumption. Every return weakens the old one. Eventually, what once required effort becomes effortless. The new identity begins thinking naturally. The new identity begins reacting naturally. The new identity no longer needs reminders because it has become your ordinary way of being. This is the moment when many manifestations seem to appear suddenly. People often call them miracles. They say everything changed overnight. But nothing truly changed overnight. The visible result appeared suddenly because the invisible foundation had finally become strong enough to support it. No one saw the countless moments when you chose faith instead of fear. No one saw the quiet evenings when you imagined your fulfilled desire instead of replaying disappointment. No one saw the silent inner conversations that gradually replaced limitation with possibility. Yet those unseen moments were the real creation. Everything visible simply followed. Do not underestimate the importance of your daily thoughts. A single thought may seem insignificant, but repeated thoughts become beliefs. Repeated beliefs become assumptions. Assumptions become identities. Identities become experiences. This is why your attention is one of the greatest gifts you possess. Where you consistently place it determines the direction of your life. If your attention remains fixed on what is missing, life faithfully reflects more reasons to notice what is missing. If your attention rests upon fulfillment, life gradually arranges itself to match that fulfillment. It cannot do otherwise. Reality is always seeking harmony with the state you occupy. This is not about controlling every event. It is about choosing the version of yourself from which every event will be interpreted. A confident person and an insecure person may experience the exact same circumstance, yet each creates a completely different meaning from it. One sees opportunity, the other sees danger. One sees possibility, the other sees limitation. The circumstance is the same. The state is different. And it is the state that ultimately determines the future. So stop measuring your progress by visible evidence. Stop asking whether the universe has sent another sign. Stop wondering if today's coincidence means your manifestation is close. Your desire does not become more real because you noticed a repeated number or received unexpected confirmation. It becomes real the moment you accept it as your present identity. The greatest sign you will ever receive is not outside you. It is the peace that replaces anxiety. It is the certainty that replaces doubt. It is the quiet confidence that no longer needs constant reassurance. When that inner transformation takes place, you will discover that you have stopped chasing your desire because, in the deepest part of your being, you know it already belongs to you. And once you know that, life begins moving in ways that once seemed impossible, not because you forced reality to change, but because you finally became the person who no longer questioned whether it could.